And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where SpaceX is set to launch another 23 Starlink satellites into orbit. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be your host for this Starlink 6-55 launch, happening hopefully just a little under an hour from now. And as always, I am joined by a fantastic team. I see all the 5x5s that you can hear me, so hopefully you can also hear Alex. How's it going, Alex?
Doing fantastic. It's very early morning here in Europe, but a nice nighttime launch out here from the Cape, I guess. And yeah, we have a very interesting Starlink launch, I guess.
You know what I like to say. It's not your ordinary Starlink, and we'll explain why. It's kind of is, kind of isn't. Anyway, stay tuned, we'll answer that one. But also joining us from the field is Mr. Max Evans. Max, how's it going?
It goes and it flows, Sawyer. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a rather gorgeous night here on Florida Space Coast.
If you ask any of the tourism boards, it's always a beautiful day and night on the Florida Space Coast, as Crispy likes to point out, which can lie quite often.
But to be fair, the forecast actually for this week and for the next 10 days or so has been absolutely gorgeous. So
the true advertised Florida weather, yes. Also out in the field, bringing us some more views is D. So we will get multiple awesome camera views for this launch with the help of our Cape duo out there. And behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and not running a play light show, but running this broadcast is Patrick. So, here we are again. Starlink from Space Launch Complex 40. Alex, do you mind giving us a little breakdown of this particular 6-55 mission?
Yeah, so, we are 55 minutes away from launch, so obviously Group 6, 55. See what I did there? And so, just like all of the Group 6 missions, this is going to go to the 43-degree inclination shell of the second generation of a Starlink. We're going to have 23 satellites launching on this mission. For this mission, obviously, what we're going to have is the usual southeast trajectory. I don't know if we can pull up that here, but essentially we're going to have the same sort of similar trajectory that goes southeast above, north of the Bahamas with drone ship landing and everything. We'll talk about the booster later. But essentially, that usual single ascent, and then we have another burn of the second stage as well after that, about an hour into the mission to circularize the orbit. Target orbit for this mission is 285 by 293 kilometer orbit, 43-degree inclination, just the usual stuff. There's lots of stats that we will go through today's webcast, including also some stats that have been recently met, which you might have seen if you follow me on Twitter. But essentially, in the sense of what it's actually doing, it's your regular Starlink, but there's interesting things as well with the stats and everything.
Indeed, there are. And of course, there's not just the interesting stats with the mission itself, there is the booster. So, Max, you mind giving us a rundown of which first stage is taking flight tonight?
I sure can. So on the docket tonight at Slick 40 is first stage booster B1067, hopefully about to embark on its 19th flight tonight. So it's a well-proven veteran at this point. Its record of flights up to this point include CRS-22, Crew 3, Turksat 5B, Crew 4, CRS-25, Hotbird 13G, O3B mPOWER 1 and 2, PSN Satria, and let's see, and Merah Putih 2, and then also 9 previous Starlink missions. So this booster has seen quite a bit of flight time to this point. It's not quite a fleet leader. This would only be 19, as we have now 3 boosters that have crossed the 20 flight threshold, even though one of them was expended at flight 20, RIP B1060. But this booster tonight will be heading downrange on a 43-degree southeastern trajectory, where it will hopefully meet recovery drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas, around 8.5 minutes after launch. And also downrange, aiding in fairing recovery, is Doug. So honestly, at this point, it is business as usual for SpaceX.
There you go. And yeah, this booster with a lot of ISS missions under its belt between the 2 crew flights and CRS. It's been quite a
Yeah.
workhorse so far.
The interesting thing is that with this mission, it is true that we have already 3 boosters at 20 flights. Well, with this booster, we will have 5 at 19. So, there's at least another 2, if I'm looking here through my spreadsheets, about to be... No, never mind. This is the only one of those 5 that needs to get to 20. Because we have B1058 was the first one to reach 19 flights. Fortunately, it was lost after that. And then the ones that have reached 20 flights already reached 19, obviously. One of them was also expanded recently on the Galileo mission. So we have 2 that have reached 20 and that are still alive. And then this one, which is the 5th to reach 19 flights, and hopefully after its recovery, it will fly again and get to 20. And one of the interesting things is that nowadays they're launching so often that the turnaround time for this booster is 33 days. It's actually the fastest for a 19th flight booster. There's only been 4 previous boosters that have flown for a 19th time, right? There's not a lot of statistics gathered along the lifetime of Falcon 9, but either way, it's the fastest of all of those. And with these cadence increasing, that means every single time they fly, even though they don't break the turnaround time records for this booster, which is currently 21 days, it means that on average, those times are going down. It used to be around 50 to 60 days in 2022 for an average turnaround time for a booster. Then it went down to about 40 to 50 days in 2023. And now in 2024, we're seeing turnarounds essentially in the 30s, high 20s. It's very rare when we see a booster that is past its 40th day in terms of, the turnaround time. So they're obviously increasing the cadence, and therefore they need these boosters sooner. And, while no record is being broken, again, things are speeding up. So it wouldn't be that surprising if this booster does its 20th flight just next month, because it's probably going to be a 30-day turnaround, something like that, which will mean maybe by the 1st or 2nd of June or something like that. Who knows? Maybe before the end of the month.
It's always possible.
31 days. Yeah. It's totally possible. It
is literally the beginning of May 2nd. So, yeah. At least here on the East Coast, May 3rd UTC. A reminder, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can over the course of the next 49 minutes and 15 seconds leading up to launch, and then, of course, some after as well. Musical Wolves coming in here with the support, a name we always see here and appreciate, saying, since Stubby nozzles are probably cheaper, was the Starlink Stubby nozzle out, I believe they made out in Vandenberg, so they would have data for using them on customer payloads. Alex?
What?
I
don't.
think they're asking if the Vandenberg launch was using stubby nozzles as a way to test them out for customer payloads.
Well, it was already a customer mission from Vandenberg.
Right.
It was carrying two Maxar, Worldview, Legion satellites. Those are observation satellites. Actually, it's quite surprising that they were launched on a pre-flown fairing. Both halves have been had been flown for a 16th time and a 13th time for that mission. And the interesting thing is that usually these pre-flown fairings, because they go into the water, they get contaminated and things like that, and then you have a very expensive payload, such as an imaging satellite, you'll have all of those optics and everything could get contaminated by those residues and things like that. Starlink and most of the other satellites, they don't care, right? Especially if they don't have anything that works in the optical spectrum or anything like it. But it's interesting that they were able to launch that. But yeah, it was totally a customer mission. So far, I don't recall any mission where they have launched Starlinks and they had a stubby nozzle, even as a ride share, like as if they were carrying Starlinks on that mission as a ride share. They have not launched any Starlink mission with a stubby nozzle.
Well, I guess that goes perfectly then to JS Web Productions question, who asks, why do they use the stubby nozzle sometimes and not all the time here?
Yeah, that has to do with the performance needed. So, for example, today's mission is carrying about 16.7 tons of mass to low Earth orbit, which is very, very close to the edge of the performance that Falcon 9 can do to the orbit that it is carrying this payload to. But if you have a way lighter payload and you don't need all of that performance, that you can save a few monies by carrying the stubby nozzle, because it's cheaper to make, you don't use as much of the material, but also it's faster to make, because making the whole thing, it needs very special tooling. It actually needs to be inside of a specialized chamber at a certain atmospheric composition and everything. Like, it's really complicated to make. The less of that nozzle that you have to make, the better, because you can save not just money but also time. Which, to be fair, in rocketry, or practically everywhere, time is money, because you have to pay for the people and everything. So if you can make MVAC engines faster, then you can essentially pump out more things faster and make more money. So that's good. So yeah, for example, on the Worldview mission, it was only 1.5 tons to low Earth orbit, which is about 10 times less payload than this mission. So much so it's so less payload, I guess, that they were able to do RTLS on the booster as well. So this mission, for example, is doing drone ship landing. It has the full nozzle extension and everything. It doesn't have any stubby nozzle or anything. No, we expect it to be like that. And however, that other one did have the RTLS. In fact, another thing that kind of eats into the performance if you try to go directly into your final orbit, this Starlink mission is going first to a parking orbit and then doing another burn to circularize the orbit, which is very efficient, because then that means that you're essentially waiting for being in the right location, right position and whatnot. It's a bit complicated to explain, but it's more efficient. Whereas this mission, the second stage went all the way straight into the final orbit. It deployed the satellite essentially a few minutes after it completed its first burn. So it was a very, I guess, highly inefficient, but because the payload was so small, it was able to do all of that. It was very capable of it.
Also, thank you, Patrick, for taking that ugly nozzle off the screen. It was appreciated.
Yeah, I'm also seeing in chat that apparently I was echoing. It's not Kevin, it's Patrick. I'm seeing some comments saying, Kevin, don't do that. It's Patrick.
Yeah, it's they showed the bad nozzle, but people make mistakes, right? I'm surprised Max didn't have more of a rebuttal than just "Hey now." Also, I do
mean,
want to.
what else is there to say? Stubby had a major win today. That's it.
Let's talk about that later. Once we need to throw it off to once we need to bid goodbye to Max for the launch, because that way we can at least
Yes, thank you, Patrick.
Shield your eyes.
Excellent.
Shield your eyes.
Excellent.
Look at that. There's so much empty space on that interstage.
But you save so much time and so much money and so much more weight with that nozzle too, that the benefits are almost endless. I mean, not really, but still.
Also, very rigged pole. Very rigged. The decider, stubby nozzle. Love it, great, or it's super more, please.
No, that's rigged, Chris.
It's super. We need more of it.
So if I click report poll, let me see. I'm joking.
Sawyer, I dare you. I double dog dare you.
I like my job. I don't want to lose it. Okay. Anyway, apparently Stubby wins. The poll is already over, but we know it was #rigged.
It was.
So yeah, feel free to put that in chat. Rigged poll. But I do want to say, in terms of the stubby nozzle, one final comment here that I have to point out. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing asking, is tonight a stubby nozzle, or was this one allowed to fully mature before it was harvested?
Wow.
I do like that one. That was good. That gets a pun token from me. Let's see here. Let's get to some other questions. Here's an interesting one. We talk about this being the 19th flight of the booster and a bunch of them getting this many flights under their belt. Max, Flight of the Bicycle, who wants to know, where are the boosters awaiting refurbishment kept at the Cape?
So once the boosters come back from either the port or LZ1 and or LZ2, they are brought back to Hangar X, which is located here at the Kennedy Space Center. And I've actually heard it referred to at times as Jiffy Lube, because that is where the boosters get serviced and get some either...
What?
Yeah! Jiffy Lube. So, Alex, do you know what that is, Jiffy Lube?
No.
So
I can see
Jiffy
why it's
Lube
funny
in the
then.
States, yeah. So Jiffy Lube here in the States is a car service center. It's more commonly known where people go to get the oil changed on their car. So think of Hangar X as a service center for all of the boosters that have just come back from assignment or about to head out to the launch pad for their next missions. So there they do inspections, they do any refurb needed, any repairs, to make sure that the boosters are fine after each flight and are then ready to go for the next one. So they are all serviced at Hangar X or Jiffy Lube here at the Kennedy Space Center.
Hey, yeah, Jiffy Lube is known for their... It's just known for their quick turnaround too, like 15-20 minutes in and out.
I've just discovered a whole world here because I'm Googling this. Wow.
I know you sounded very shocked, Alex, but that maybe one day, imagine that a Falcon 9 does end up getting turned around. Maybe not in 20 minutes, but in like less than 2 or 3 hours somehow, and then reflown again. Imagine that.
Maybe with a Starship. I don't know if Falcon 9 can do that. But
well, not
maybe
with that
Starship.
attitude.
Also, Matt Z saying, don't let EJ know you use Jiffy Lube. As
Why?
a car guy, yeah, he would not be happy with that. But yeah, and in case you're wondering, there's a chance you might be able to even see Hangar X and Jiffy Lube itself in the upcoming week, potentially, thanks to a certain video that might be coming out, right, Max?
Let's see if the writer actually writes it on time.
Well, I was going to say that people might actually be able to get a good view of Hangar X / Jiffy Lube in a video coming up next week after an event you performed today.
Indeed. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Myself, Dee, and Julia all hopped in a helicopter and performed our monthly flyover today. So, video coming next week, and it was a fun one today for sure.
I'm just gonna
Oh.
say 2 words: big hole. That's it.
Big hole.
And you laughed at Jiffy Lube. Oh, goodness gracious. These late night Starlinks.
They do be hitting different though, even though they're not really that late tonight.
Ain't that the
That's
truth?
yeah. Those 2 words are a spoiler for the video, I guess.
I mean, it's not wrong though.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, continuing on here. Here's a question from Hugh-Man, who I'll put this one to you, Alex, saying, "Why does B1063 not have more flights than B1067? Any reason why they would use the newer booster 1067 that much more than 1063?
Well, I mean, 63 is only like 2 flights behind. It's not really that different, and I'm guessing that the next flight from Vandenberg will probably use 63 just because of more or less the order that they have here for. Like, I'm looking at my spreadsheet right now as I'm talking about this. But yeah, one of the main reasons why 63 doesn't have as many flights is precisely because when it started its flight history, so to speak, it launched the Sentinel-6A mission, the Michael Freilich mission for NASA/ESA, I guess. And then its next sort of customer mission wasn't scheduled for at least another whole year. Now, it did not sit around. It did launch from the Cape a Starlink mission, actually the last of the V1.0 missions, Starlink V1.0/28, but that happened like 6 months. So if you can imagine about a year in between Sentinel-6A and DART, which was the third flight of that booster, in between the Starlink mission is like right in the middle, 6 months after Sentinel and 6 months before DART. So it spent 1 whole year in which it only flew 3 times. So that's the main difference. 67 in the case of 67, it did 5 flights in about 13 months. I'm looking here. So CRS-22 to CRS-25, it was one on June 3rd and the other on July 15th. That's about 13 months, 5 flights. Whereas 63, in the same kind of time frame, more or less, it only did 3. So now you know why there's such a big difference, where 63, it began very slow, and 67, even though it had customer missions, those customer missions weren't really that far away, and so it was able to do CRS-22, Crew 3, Turksat 5B, Crew 4, and CRS-25 all in more or less the same kind of time period as 63. So that's sort of the main reason for that difference.
There you go. Now, as you can see, we are coming up on T-minus 35 minutes here. So a couple of minutes ago, we should have had the go, no-go poll for fueling. So we will know the result of that poll very likely in the coming minute or two, in hopes of being able to see frost forming on the rocket. That will indicate that propellant load is underway, including the RP-1, the rocket propellant 1, the refined form of kerosene, and LOX, liquid oxygen or loxygen, both on the first stage, and then the second stage, RP-1 load. It will load liquid oxygen later, and we will know that's going to happen with our favorite T-minus 20-minute vent that we'll keep an eye out for. So right now, we will keep an eye on the base of the rocket as well, see if fueling is underway, and hope that we are good to continue on for tonight's Starlink 6-55 mission.
Yeah. Sometimes we do get, the usual tweet from SpaceX, even before we get the frost. So let's see who wins today, the frost or SpaceX.
The race is on.
Yeah.
All right. Feverishly refreshing SpaceX's X/Twitter feed. Let's get back to some more of the questions here that you guys have in the meantime. Coco Cats first, I want to say thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Roadrunner Gaming saying, sorry, I've been MIA lately. Driving up likes, been stuck in hospital. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So while I'm able
Oh.
to comment, smash that like, and kick the algorithm monster, go NSF, go SpaceX, and Falcon 9. Well, Roadrunner, you've just focused on getting better, and we still appreciate you being here and appreciate the support. And Tank Watcher Vince, thank you for the support, saying thanks for the streams. Well, that is our pleasure. Max, here's a question for you from Ringtone, or excuse me, from Thanos on sustainability, saying, hey, NASA Space Late, we're like 30 people down at Cherry Down Park, and it's kind of windy. Any info on that?
Cherry Down, by the way, is a fantastic spot to watch launches. It's incredible. 30 people too. That's y'all are having a party.
Yes.
But so from where we are at the KSC press site right now, it's actually dead still. The flag behind us by the countdown clock is completely limp. There is no wind here at all, but we can see the clouds moving actually pretty rapidly. So the upper levels are probably pretty active, and the winds were also active earlier today during our flyover. So, and you guys are also, with you being right by the water, you are of course prone to receiving any of the sea breeze still coming in, which will affect, of course, the waves and also the amount of noise you will be able to hear or not, depending on which direction the wind is going. The last I checked, I think the forecast was around 90% favorable for liftoff tonight in the launch window. So as
85.
far what is it, Alex? Sorry,
85. Yep.
85%. So really,
very
that's
close.
very close. But yeah, as far as we know, there are no constraints at the moment that would interfere with liftoff tonight. Apart from upper level winds, if they are an issue. But to this point, we have not heard anything from SpaceX or anyone else.
Actually, we just have an update now. According to SpaceX's website, the liftoff T0 is now moved to 10:13 p.m. Eastern Time. This
Talk
is breaking
about
news to
timing.
everyone. Yeah, sorry, didn't inform the back channel or anything yet. But yeah, the new T0 is now 10:13 p.m., although they have not stated a reason why. They have pushed back the launch by just a little bit.
I gotta say, I kind of hate it when they update these things via the website because there's no way of having like a notification or anything.
Yeah, that is true.
Also, because it depends on the cache of your thing that you're looking at. Because right now on my PC it's still saying 9:49, whereas on my phone it's saying 10:13. So yeah.
Yeah. So, SpaceX pulling a SpaceX there, I guess.
I will love a different thing. Hi SpaceX, if you're watching. Love you.
Yes, please notify more often on Twitter or other X. Sorry, X. I'll call it X even, just to make sure that they listen. Anyway, there is your. That's why we haven't seen Frost or a tweet yet, because it is slightly pushed back. So it is the potential for upper level wins, but again, as mentioned, they have not given any official reason as to why the move. And also, I do want to point out, Cherry Down Park is a fantastic viewing site. I almost hate mentioning it because it kind of gives away a really hidden site that not that many people know about. That does give a fantastic view of pretty much all of the launches that go south, as well as our TLS missions. But yeah. Along those lines, Joseph Tatum also mentioning I'm at Rusty's, and there's no wind. So down over by our camera, that is the Fleet Cam camera up there, also not windy on the ground, but we'll have to see. And also, One Ghost, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. So, if it is potentially upper level winds, we don't know for certain, but how do they actually? There is the view from Rusty's over there anyway.
There's actually, I was gonna bring up a thing here that I don't think it's the upper level winds. On the weather forecast here from the 45th Weather Squadron, it says Upper level winds remain weak out of the northwest, reaching only about 35 to 40 knots. So, and then the additional risk criteria, it said that the upper level wind shear, it was low. So both the shear and the intensity of the wind was low. It was not really a concern. So I don't know, because 35 to 40 knots for upper level winds is very low. I've seen Falcon 9 launching in 120 knots of upper level winds. So might be another thing. Might be even, recovery. If, even though booster recovery weather is also have, it has a low risk criteria, it might be something they're still working on it. Who knows? That's sort of the thing with these missions, right? And these updates through the website and whatnot. We never get to know these little things that may be happening.
Right. It's all the little details. We don't get to listen into the net like we used to back in the day, where you could actually hear them talking about things like that as well. So,
yep.
Another thing, please bring it back. And in terms of ground winds, here's a view of the wind speed graph from the 45th Weather Squadron, which is part of the range there, basically showing the direction and the wind speeds. And from the looks of it, again, as you can see, not bad at all. Pretty low and calm winds. Everything looking okay there. But we're not inside SpaceX, so we'll wait for the update on that. Meantime,
That's ground winds, right?
That looked like ground winds, yeah. So,
yeah.
Let's take some more questions. In the meantime, reminder at NASA Spaceflight to ask a question. Here's an interesting one. I was going to bring this up earlier from Ringtone, saying that 5 days ago, SpaceX tweeted they're working on going for 40 flights for fairings and booster. When do you all think that will actually happen? Max, I'll start with you and then Alex.
Well, it took a long time to get these boosters up to 20 flights alone. But then again, the cadence for a majority of these boosters' lifetimes has been slow relative to what SpaceX has them at now. So, oh boy. They have roughly, 9 or 10 boosters in stock here at on the East Coast, Alex?
Yeah, should be 10 if I remember correctly.
So, at the current cadence, with how many boosters they have, it may honestly take as little, maybe a year and a half at the well, no, I should say at the least it should take maybe a year and a half. But with the cadence picking up for what it is and what SpaceX aims to do next year as well, potentially, maybe even less than that. But I would say at least a year before we get into the neighborhood of 40 flights for a booster.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more likely to be 2026. Like 2025, we'll probably see the 30th flight in 2025. I will say we're probably most definitely going to see the 25th this year. I don't know about 30th. I might be wrong, but I can see the 30th being around a year from now, maybe in the springtime of 2025, and then about a year later, the 40th. I will also like to know how they're going to be doing it, because when they were moving from 10 to where they are right now, they didn't go straight ahead. They went from 10 to 15, then from 15 to 20. So I'm wondering if they're going to have some kind of growth path there where they go from 20 to 25 and then from 25 to 30 instead of going all the way, from 20 all the way to 40. That seems probably too radical given what they have done in the past. Or maybe they have learned so much that they're like, it's okay, 40, straight ahead, why not? I don't know. So it might be interesting to see.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So it might be interesting to see, because we have already seen one booster on the 20th flight already being expanded. There's another Galileo mission coming up in September, which might also expand another booster. I wouldn't be surprised if for that one they expand, for example, B1062, and it's only its 25th flight, for example, because it's 5 months from now at 1 month per launch. That will be the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and then the 25th and last flight September with the Galileo L13 mission, the next one on Falcon 9, and hopefully the last one, depending on how Ariane 6 is doing by then. So that could be a thing. So I can see the older flights, so to speak. I call them the early ones because they are early, so to speak, but also old. I can see those maybe going to 25 launches. And then, for example, 67, the one that is launching today, maybe it reaches 30. And then there are more newer boosters in the 70s, for example, and those are the ones that then reach 35 and 40. Who knows? Like I can see that sort of thing from them, or maybe they just go all in. We'll see. It's gonna be very interesting. That being said, I'm a spreadsheet guy, right? And I like my spreadsheets, and so it's gonna be interesting how I have to set all those things up.
Alex liking spreadsheets? No, never.
No.
Let's see. If I had to guess, I think we're still a couple years out. I think next year is going to be the big proving point. I know they said they won 144 launches this year, and I think they'll break 100, that's for sure. But next year, I think, is when the cadence is going to pick up somehow even more than we're already seeing now. I think once they've proven that they can reach that cadence next year, then the year after is when we start seeing boosters that have flown, as you mentioned, stepping to the 30 and then into the 40 flight range. And in terms of fairings, I mean, we've been seeing fairings that have flown almost close to 20 and have very likely flown more than that, if we're being honest. I mean, the one that launched earlier today, I believe they mentioned 16 times for those fairing halves.
Yeah, one fairing half for the 16th time and the other for the 13th. 16 is currently the most that we have heard of, but who knows? Maybe there's some fairing half out there that is on the 19th flight or something, and we just don't know because SpaceX. Well, let's say that they don't really talk a lot about these reuse milestones in terms of the fairings and things like that. Or rather, they only talk about them when there's like a milestone or something like that. Very here and there kind of thing instead of being for every flight. For the boosters, we do know they have a list of the previous missions, and so that way we can know which booster it is. But sadly, for the fairing halves, it's not the case. They used to very, very back in the day when they started reusing them, but nowadays, yeah, that is not the case. There's also the other thing as well that you were mentioning in terms of the cadence, because there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, this launch this year is going to be the peak of Falcon 9, right? There's not going to be any more launches in a year than this year, because they're targeting 148 flights this year, and they're like, yeah, that's the peak. They're not going to be launching anymore because Starship is going to take over, and Falcon 9 is done. They're actually targeting 200 launches next year. That's only for Falcon family. This is not taking into account Starship, which will probably bring another maybe 10 or so more launches next year. So that is a lot of launches, and obviously more than 148. Ha ha ha. See, I can do math. But we are right now on the 45th launch of a Falcon 9. This is the 45th launch of a Falcon 9 in 2024. We have seen already 2 months in a row with 12 Falcon 9 launches. This is the second launch of a Falcon 9, and we are on May 2nd. The second launch this month, excuse me. The second launch of a Falcon 9 this month, and we are already on the second day of the month. There's another 5 more launches in the next sort of week or so. So we're going to have 5-6 launches within the first week of the month. It's crazy, right? I don't think it's that really out of the question that they're probably, especially next year once they start having Space Launch Complex 6 from the West Coast, then that's going to put things very high up into gear, and hopefully we're going to get a lot more launches, all of them.
I think we should also touch on really quickly in the individual Merlin 1D engines that are in Falcon as well, because I think there was a point in time, I think it was between 6 and 12 months ago, that on I think it was a Starlink mission, SpaceX specifically tweeted correct me if I'm wrong on this, maybe I'm misremembering, but an individual Raptor Merlin that was
Merlin.
flying on that mission had flown 26 times, I think. Does that sound right?
21, I think.
21
Yeah.
times. So, and
21.
that was, and however long ago that was, that engine has flown X amount of times more. So,
You know,
go ahead.
you know how long that was?
Oh no.
It seems a long time ago.
How long was that?
It was less than 3 months ago.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? What?
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
was this
gosh.
year. I believe it
No.
was either February or March. But I know, I think the booster, I think it was booster B1062. I think it was.
That
I think,
is that
off the
makes
top
me
of my
feel
head.
so old.
But
Man,
it launched another
this-
2 times in that time. So that booster has already another 2 flights. Or may have even been this booster, actually. I think it was either this or 62. I know it was a very, it was a booster with high number of flights. And we saw, wait, what? 21 flights for the Merlin engine? But the booster has like what? 16, 17 launches? What? Yeah. So that shows that they moved them around and they used them even more.
I mean, I guess it was still technically a long time ago. Back when that happened, I was in my 20s. Now I'm in my 30s.
This cadence is just aging everyone so quickly here.
And yes, I turned 30 in February, hence the joke there. Anyway, for those of you who are tuning in hopes of seeing the T-minus 20-minute event, as mentioned, the launch has been pushed back slightly. So right now, the current targeted T0, the launch time for this mission, is 10:13 p.m. Eastern Time, which, as you can see based on the clock there, about 40 minutes from now. We will have to see shortly if they continue on with the fuel loading, which would begin at T-minus 35 minutes, or if it ends up getting pushed back slightly more. We are going to keep an eye on that as we continue the countdown for the launch of 23 more Starlink V2 mini satellites on the 6-55 mission tonight.
Certified Starlink moments.
Yeah, don't remind. I do want to thank some very generous support that came in. He and What, thank you very much for gifting a Red Team membership. Bucket Bomb, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. Katie with the $20 super chat saying Sawyer pun tokens. I am going to use those now, so wahahaha. Thank you very much for allowing me to be evil. And Stabby Unicorn with the $100 tip from tips.nasaspaceflight.com. Goodness gracious, saying, hello all, what's a great fun fact? Ooh, gonna have to come up with a fun fact. But-
MVEX Stubby flew today. That's a fun fact.
That's not fun, no.
It's a horrible fact.
Let's see, fun fact.
I have one. I don't know.
Go for it.
It's just that it is like a round number. This is the 160th launch dedicated to Starlink.
Ooh,
Yeah,
there you go, that's fun.
160th.
Let's see. Did you know that Leland Melvin, who took the famous picture in his shuttle suit with his dog, was not the first astronaut photographed that had a pet in it? That actually happened on STS-8, where there is a cat, and you will see said picture on Shuttle Sundays this Sunday on Space Coast Live.
Did my internet drop when I was about to talk about the fun fact?
Which one? The 160?
Oh, did I say that? Okay.
Yes. It was said.
Okay. Okay, because I stopped hearing anything. So
And yes, Stabby, thank you so much again for the very generous support. That's what allows us to sit out here all these hours waiting for the launches, getting multiple cameras out there, and providing some awesome coverage, and even things like the flyover. I mean, totally didn't fly over KSC today for a video coming out next week. That didn't happen. Let's see here. Yeah, cough, cough, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's see. Anna Perkins with a good question. Alex, this one's for you. They are described as the Starlink V2 Mini. But what are the actual dimensions? Are they really that mini? And I know the answer to that is no, they're not super mini.
Yeah. The satellites are around, I will say. So let's see. If you remember the Starlink V1.5 satellites, right? They had two of them stacked side by side. These occupy the whole of so on their length, so to speak, they occupy the whole diameter, more or less, not entirely, of the fairing. So it's about 4 meters or so, 4.5 meters in length. The width, I believe, is also 4, maybe 3.5 or something. It's sort of around those dimensions. Essentially, it goes almost entirely into the fairing. And then in terms of the width, I don't know, maybe 30 to 40 centimeters, maybe 50. But yeah, it's big. It's big. It's like essentially the room that I am right now will probably not be able to fit one of these satellites. Although to be fair, my home is very small. To be fair, but yeah, it's not that small of a. It has mini, but only because they are based off much bigger satellites that are like twice as big, which is the Starlink V2. Those essentially fit into Starship, and they are about twice as long. So they are about 7 meters long. And they are so the actual I don't know which one is the name. I guess one it's the width, one is the length, and then the other is the height. So yeah, the length will be again 7 meters. The width will be 3.5 in the terms of the full Starlink V2. So you have 2 and 2, and you have 7 meters by 7 meters. You essentially put 2 together. You have 7 meters by 7 meters, and you have those two within the Starship payload bay. So that's essentially how it's going to be for, or at least how it was going to be for Starship. But I'm starting to doubt we're going to see V2. We'll see what kind of version of a Starlink we see on that.
There you go. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and that was a great view there of some of those encapsulated Starlink V2 mini satellites.
Yeah.
Also, just very fun to say the word encapsulated. Anyway, continuing on, we are at the same point as we were just a short time ago, approaching T-minus 35 minutes. This is the point where we will know if they had decided to go or not go for propellant load into Falcon 9, meaning that they would be targeting the 10:13 p.m. Eastern Time launch T0. At T-minus 38 minutes is when they do that go, no-go poll. So now we will keep an eye out to see if the booster starts getting frosty. As if that is the case, then we would start seeing Stage 1 being filled with the RP1, the refined form of kerosene, as well as the Loxygen, the liquid oxygen there, both simultaneously. And then Stage 2 would begin just loading the RP1 and would continue to load that until about the T-minus 20 minute, 20 second mark, which is when we get the famous T-minus 20 minute vent, which is the indication that the RP1 load is complete. And once it stops, then we will know that Stage 2 LOX load is underway. So we will continue to keep an eye. As before, we will see the latest, which is now that they pushed it back another 10 minutes to 10:23 p.m. Eastern Time, according to their website.
Is that
Breaking
real, or
news.
is that just you being you?
No, that is legitimate breaking news.
Excellent. Certified Starlink moment. Let's continue.
Hey,
The
at
good
least
news
it's just 10 minutes.
I was going to say, yeah, that's the good news, is that it's only 10 minutes. Any idea when they might push it just 10?
Yeah, so instead of 33, it should be 43 up there on the top left. There we go. Now it's changed. Thanks, Patrick.
Sorry, Patrick. Yeah. Normally we leave a nice little message in the back saying, "Oh, the time changed," and tagging all the people. This is just me refreshing, going, "Nope,
We'll
delayed
do it
again.
live.
We'll do it live." So thank you, Patrick, for putting up with my backseat producing here.
But yeah, for those asking, like the last T0 will be at 1:17 a.m. Eastern. So yeah, there's plenty of window here. There's plenty of window. Let's just hope that it is just this and no more.
Exactly. So now we should be 4 minutes away from the go no go poll for fueling. Then a T-minus 35 minutes. Oh wait, we already just did that spiel.
I have the feeling that they are still in the go no go poll.
Very possible. In the meantime, that gives us time to answer more questions. Here's an interesting one from Logan, who asks, how does SpaceX move boosters from the Cape to Vandenberg and back, and why do they do this? So how do they actually transport these Falcon 9 boosters? Max, you want to take that one?
Simply, it is taken by truck on a transporter. A big, not 18-wheeler. I think it has a lot more wheels than that. But essentially, it is taken by a semi truck wrapped up and trucked all the way across the country. Falcon 1 was flown in the back of a C-17 to get to Quad, but Falcon 9 is so big that they need to, of course, truck it, and that is how they transport Stage 2 as well. And their diameter was also dictated by the size of tunnels that they could go through. Fun fact for Falcon 9. So, but yeah, simply U.S. roadways over roads that are appropriate, that don't have too much undulation and bending, because otherwise that would not bode well for a very long and thin metallic structure.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that you may have passed one on the highway or interstate or freeway, whatever you call it. It basically looks like a giant long tube wrapped in like a black garbage bag, I think is the best way to describe kind of what it looks like.
That's very accurate, yes. It is impossible to miss. Like, when you see it, you will know immediately, oh yeah, that's a Falcon 9. It's very, very hard to miss it.
The interesting thing is that nowadays they rarely move boosters from Vandenberg to Florida or back, or the other way around, I guess. Like, I think the last time they did that might have been B1083, I think it was.
Ironically,
no.
today, the booster that flew today started out in life here in Florida before getting moved to Vandenberg.
67?
Fun fact.
The booster that flew today in Vandenberg, that one started out life in Florida, I think.
Yeah, it started there and then it moved to the Cape, to Vandenberg around the middle of its lifetime, more or less. And then yeah, they have a couple. Again, I think it was. Yeah, I'm looking here on my list. It is B1081. It's the other one. That's the most recent that they have moved from the Cape to Vandenberg. That was that did the PACE launch in February, and then about a month later or so, it did the Transporter 10 mission from Vandenberg, and more recently, it did the Starlink 8.1 mission from Vandenberg. So it's already a Vandenberg booster, I guess. It's already made itself at home, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, the one from earlier today, B1061, flew out of the Cape for the first two crew missions, Crew 1 and Crew 2, and then flew, let's see, what is that? 9 total times.
SXM-8, CRS-23, XP, Starlink 4.7, Transporter 4, Transporter 5, and Globalstar FM-15, and then it moved to Vandenberg to do Starlink 3.3, Eros C3, Starlink 2.7, Starlink 3.5, 2.10, 7.1, 7.5, Project 425, that was more recently in December. Then January did Starlink 10, 7.10, Starlink 7.15 in February, and then today it did Worldview Legion 1 and 2. There you go.
Yeah. And in other words, its last launch from Florida was June of 2022, and its first flight
Yep.
from Vandenberg was August of 2022.
Yeah.
So it did that rollout. But yeah, again, they're quite obvious on the highway to see him, so you never know. Keep an eye out for it when you're on the highway, and you might know. You might catch it. Who knows?
And 99% of the time, because I was actually bringing this up, because I was going to say 99% of the time, you're most likely seeing a new booster. Just because of this, because it's very rare for these boosters, used boosters, I mean, to move from Florida to Vandenberg. Again, like the last time it was in February, and prior to that it was like a year or so before that. So it's not very that common.
True. And in terms of the roadways they travel, at least it's a good thing that they check, as you mentioned, for the curves, for all of the tunnels, and it's a good thing they also used to check for heights of bridges, so that they don't accidentally bump an interstage into one.
And for those
It's
wondering, the
so
highway that they use is I-10.
Yep.
There you go. But yeah, in case they're wondering, there was what was that, 73 that got the bump?
77.
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
Yep.
That accidentally got bumped into a bridge on its way to the Cape, so they kind of had to bring it back. All right, we are now at T-minus 36 minutes, coming up on when fueling would begin again. At this point, I might as well just say this into a tape recorder and just start playing that.
Well, it's
I
Groundhog
wonder-
Day again.
I wonder what will be first. If it's gonna be the website, if it's gonna be a tweet, if it's gonna be the frost. What is it gonna be first? Are we gonna
At this
see?
rate, it's been the website at this rate because there's nothing to see.
That is also true.
Also,
I'm
Patrick
checking
saying,
everything.
Patrick saying he's not going to put the timeline back up again in case it jinxes us again.
But you know what they say, third time's a charm, right?
Is it the third time already?
I think, is it the third or the fourth?
Oh, he's feeling dangerous. He's putting it back up.
Oh,
Oh Lord, he coming.
all right. Let's see if I remember the spiel again. All right, at this point, we are now coming up on the T-minus 35-minute mark, which means very shortly, we should begin to see fueling aboard the Falcon 9 rocket. About 3 minutes ago, T-minus 38 minutes is when they would verify go for propellant load or decide to scrub for a little bit later in the window. But at T-minus 35 minutes now, we should be seeing very shortly the RP-1, Rocket Propellant 1, the refined form of kerosene, begin loading into the first stage along with the LOX, the liquid oxygen, or as I like to call it, LOXygen. At the same time, Stage 2 will begin loading RP-1 and RP-1 only. You will know that that is complete with the T-minus 20-minute vent, after which, once that T-minus 20-minute vent stops, that is when Stage 2 liquid oxygen load will begin. So we will keep an eye out to see if there is any frost that forms on the rocket, or a tweet, or an update to the website.
We have another delay.
There, all right, it's
Alex,
the timeline.
It should be 37.
Oh
Yep.
my goodness. See, these are what we mean when we say these late night Starlinks do be hitting different, because these
They
are
do be hitting
certified
different.
late night Starlink moments. These are.
Also, very odd that this one is not 10 minutes, but 14 minutes. Is it potentially for cutouts that they may have, Alex?
Yeah, they just have their different T-zeros set up already. I think, let me
So I'm guessing
take a
part of
look.
when they calculate these T-zeros is they have to take into account the potential for any orbital debris or other satellites that are overhead that they might potentially deploy an entire swarm of 23 satellites into.
Yeah, the thing is, the next T-zero, so, you know, they usually coordinate these launch opportunities and everything with different tracking sites and everything. And so Celeste Track, which is one of these sites, they get the information from SpaceX, and sometimes they get like a list of potential opportunities from the first opportunity all the way to the last. So this will be the one that we are today. This will be the 4th launch opportunity of the day. The 5th one, if this is actually a complete list that they get from SpaceX, and I say that because sometimes they bring up some different T0s that they make up. If this is actually the list, then the next T0 wouldn't be for at least another almost 50 minutes, which will be at 11:21 p.m. Eastern. So let's hope they don't delay that much, because I want to go to sleep. I want to finish stuff tomorrow, like a certain flyover. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also have a special video coming out next week that I need to record too. So lots of fun things that we can tease, but we'll have to hold off on those until we get to whenever the actual T0 is going to be. So right now, once again, if you're just joining, the new T0 is 10:37 p.m. Eastern Time, so about 46 minutes from now. It is Groundhog Day again. Let's see here. Angry American with the support saying, almost 5K watching and less than 1,000 likes. Come on, smash that like and kick the algorithm monster. If I can like from hospital bed, you can do it too. Thank you for the kind words there. Again, I appreciate when people do this, because then I don't feel so bad about having to clamor for likes and things like that. So, and then Habu, thank you very much for the support as well, asking if something were to go wrong during a launch, which we hope doesn't happen, but yes, there would be an FAA and internal investigation both. Let's see. JS Web Productions asking, Alex, are there any direct-to-cell satellites on this flight?
Nope, not that we know of. And with 23 satellites, I really doubt they have any. They will have told if that were to be the case. And we
Right.
also will see it. So there's 2 different ways that we will be able to see it. First of all, they need approval, or even notification to the FCC, to the Federal Communications Commission, because right now the full constellation of direct-to-cell satellites is not approved. So they need that kind of stuff with them. And then also, on the other hand, we will see it like visually, because when they separate the fairings and everything, we see the payload, the payload stack with all of the Starlink satellites on top. We can see which ones are the direct-to-cell, because they have the hinges for the deployable antenna. So the direct-to-cell satellites, they have this big deployable antenna that they sort of have in a big hinge kind of thing. And so it deploys, and then that sort of brings them the extra capability to be able to, listen to the very faint signals from phones on the ground. So yeah, we will see it visually in that case.
Right, so right now those are basically strictly being launched out of Vandenberg.
Yeah, and they're also being launched from Vandenberg as well.
Here's one, Max. I'll throw this one to you from Daniel Weilert, saying, are the hazard areas that they put out the same for each site, or do they vary between the different launch sites and launch pads?
I think for distances up close, I think they are broadly the same. I mean, I can't imagine LC-36 having the same exact keep out zone as 39A. But it also depends on the trajectory that the rocket is going. So if it's northeast, the keep out zones and the hazard zones will favor, of course, more northeast, farther up that way into the Atlantic. Whereas for these Starlink missions, the hazard zones favor a more southeastern area, especially more toward the Bahamas. So it really depends on where the rocket is going, and also for rockets that are not, or for companies that do not recover the first stage, like Delta 4, Atlas 5. There also is a hazard zone kept out for where the first stage may come down and, of course, smack into the ocean. So it all really depends on, of course, which launch pad it is, obviously, and then, of course, where the rocket is going.
Yeah, I think it's more mission dependent than it is launch pad dependent. Obviously, as you mentioned, each launch pad does have its own human keep out zone, but in terms of, downrange for NOTAMs and not Mars and things like that, they're pretty much trajectory dependent.
Yeah, that's a good thing of these Starlink missions being always to the southeast, because they are essentially always the same. The rocket, it has slight variations, but usually the big hazard zones, they already take into account those slight variations. So for example, for launch, when you think about it, Orlando is very close, right, to the launch site in terms of flights coming in and out. It's not close in terms of, for example, if you want to go on a walk or anything like it, right? But if you're in a plane, you're essentially maybe 10, 15 minutes away. Essentially, Cape Canaveral is essentially within the approach corridor, so to speak, to Orlando. So one of the things that happens is that if you're coming from the East Coast, from the northeast of the United States, and you're coming into Orlando, and the flight is going to the northeast, you're essentially blocking that path. There's a lot of flights in that way. So what they do is, part of the reason why they do these southeast launches is precisely because that avoids going through that corridor, through that approach from the northeast for all of those flights. If you look at the TFR, the temporary flight restriction for this flight, you will see that it's sort of like a, I don't know, kind of, how to explain? So essentially, like these nuclear bomb shape clouds. I don't really remember
Mushroom clouds.
Mushroom cloud. There we go. That's the word. So it looks like a mushroom that was cut from the north. So like the north is cut. It used to be the whole mushroom back in the days, right? Like if you can imagine the roundy part being towards the ocean, because it makes sense, right? It's going out to the ocean, so that's where it's wider. But the narrower part is right on the launch site. So what happens is that it will be very cut. It will be cut on the north side. It used to be the whole thing back in the day. Now it's just cut, and the north side is completely free for the flights to go in and out of Orlando when you're trying to go to the northeast of the United States and things like that. Obviously, that the launch is at, I don't know, 10 something p.m. also helps. There's probably not a lot of flights. But yeah.
It's also worth noting, if you go on the north to south area, that's also a flight corridor usually for planes that are going towards, let's say, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami airports, down that way as well. Having flown into those, I've many times passed right over the Cape to the point where you can look down and see rockets on the pad.
And also Melbourne as well. Don't forget Melbourne.
True. Yes, you got some of the smaller regional ones in there as well, like Melbourne Airport. Orlando Sanford is there. You've got Vero Beach, all those as well. But basically, the point stands that there's also that way. So rather than having to vector them all the way out to the middle of the ocean or inland, then it's also something they keep in mind when they create these launch windows and the NOTAMs and not Mars.
Yep. Sometimes people say that the marine zones for the booster, it looks like a coffin, but it's just because of how it, if you think about it, when things come down from space, right? If you have a booster that is not controllable because for whatever reason it has failed or something after stage separation, then it's coming down. There's a lot more chances that its trajectory, it deviates in the forwards and backwards orientation. That's why it's sort of elongated. But also, it has more chances that it goes more left and right if it's more forward into the trajectory, because it has more chances to deviate, right? Because it is able to sort of fly more left or right. So that's why when you see those zones, it looks kind of like a coffin, because it's narrower near one point and then it stretches out. So it's long and narrow in one point and then it widens out. So it kind of looks like that kind of coffin shape. Because, like that's physics for you, but it's ironic as well. That kind of has that that sort of shape.
And I did see someone mentioning that Melbourne's in Australia. There is a Melbourne, Florida as well. So if you have, I believe it's KMLB if you want to fly it in Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Wait, do you mean that there are multiple cities that are called the same across the world? Oh my god, I should go to Toledo.
Holy Toledo, you shouldn't.
Hey guys, we're coming up on T-minus 37
Shit, shit,
minutes.
I'm trying to
you're
ignore
jinxing
it.
No.
Trying not to say anything.
We're just here, we're cool. Maybe in 36 minutes and 50 seconds there's gonna be a launch. We don't know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I need like a 4 mile long stick to just like poke the tower. Like, hey, come on, do something.
Come on, do something. Yeah. Or at least figure out whatever's causing these delays to just poke it and go, yo, can you tell me what's going on here? So, for those wondering, I see also people asking where you can see the launch. If you are along the southeastern part of Florida, you have a very good chance of seeing it. Same with down in the Bahamas. And honestly, if you're on the opposite side of the state as well, like Tampa area, you probably have a good chance of viewing this launch, if it goes off at this rate, as well. Do we dare try again? We are now at...
Well, we have to at some point.
We're now
Let
at
me check the usual sites just in case.
I'm going to try it. Here we go. So, we are now at about the T-minus 35-minute mark. At T-minus 38 minutes is when they would give the no-go for fueling. As we hit the T-minus 35-minute mark, that is when fueling would begin, starting off with the RP-1, Rocket Propellant 1, a refined form of kerosene for Stage 1, as well as the LOX, the liquid oxygen, that would begin loading. For the second stage, it would just begin with the RP-1. That will go until the famous T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent, which will be the indication that RP-1 load is complete. Then liquid oxygen load will begin at T-minus 16 minutes, hopefully, and counting. So we will keep an eye out either for a tweet from SpaceX or an X post, an update to the website, or hopefully seeing frost form on the vehicle to indicate they are proceeding with the current T0 of 10:37 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, made it through the whole spiel. Let's see if the T0 continues through the whole spiel now. If the curse of the timeline is true.
Oh, we have an update from SpaceX. The launch auto sequence has started, and fueling of Falcon 9 is underway at pad 40.
Excellent.
Holy cow! All right.
There we go.
It was the timeline. Patrick officially cursed it with the timeline, so there we go. Now we can pull the timeline up. There we go. This is basically what I was just saying, but we didn't want to put on screen in case it delayed the launch for an additional time there.
So now we can check off the first four.
Yes. Going green.
And the other one.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Finally, we can check
We should
off
probably
the list.
make all of that maybe one single. I'm already... Well, I'm not going to leak. Yeah.
Yeah, don't...
Let's
I know
move
what
on.
you're thinking. But yeah, let's continue here.
Yeah.
Now that we're counting down, I do want to thank some more support here. Shadow Gunner, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership, a name that we see here often, along with Bideford. Thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. If you did get one of those memberships, definitely make sure you give Bideford a thank you. And John Beasley, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Reminder, Capcom and above gets access to the NSF Discord, so come say hi to us down there. All right. Let's see here. Here's a good question while we were teasing things that we probably shouldn't be leaking. This is from Max. Space Wolf asking, has a civilian aircraft ever landed at the launch and landing facility right nearby at the Cape? And what would happen?
Have they? Yes. Although I cannot list a specific occasion off of the top of my head. Of course, that runway is open in the event of an emergency, of course. But given the nature of where it is, forgive me, I don't know the exact regulations off of the top of my head. But I can't imagine it would be very easy to land your aircraft there without valid reasoning, for simple reason of exactly where it is and what you are in proximity to. The airspace around KC is very strict, and it is the same across the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station as well. Has it happened? I'm more than certain it has. And for even us, actually, before we move on, I see Frost.
Yay!
Hey.
What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So, for example, our flyover today in the helicopter out of Port Canaveral, while we didn't touch down, we flew over the SLF, no problem, or the SLF or the LLF, whatever you want to call it. We flew right over it today with special airspace permission. And I think that is all that is needed to at least fly over. But I'm sure you would need a lot more. You would need a real purpose to actually touch down and come to a full stop there.
I've seen people that, again, as you mentioned, with very special requests and clearance ahead of time that have gotten permission to do touch and goes, but never a full-on landing and kind of just park the plane there for a bit. There are other, as you mentioned, other companies that use it. Zero G does some of their flights from the launch and landing facility. Obviously, the X-37B lands there, although that's definitely not civilian. So, yeah, and that is operated by Space Florida, typically. Take some more questions here. Toaster Chip. Alex, this one's for you, our spreadsheet man here. They said, whatever happened to Group 6-50? Is it nowhere to be found?
I also wonder the same thing. I don't know. This is just what we find on the documentation, right? Usually the note times and everything, they say the name of the mission. This is 655. We have 656 and 657 later this. I think it's later this week or maybe next week. Next week. So yeah, we have all those extra 2 ones. I don't know when 650 will happen. Maybe they're skipping it. I really don't know. Sometimes they do that. They had, a relatively decent size of missions that they completely skipped. Like, for example, Starlink 514. I'm looking here, 424, 428, 430, 432, and 433. They also had at one point 5.8, and they never did it. Then 2.2 and 2.3. So yeah, there's a bunch of missions that they sort of even had documentation for them and still didn't do it. Like those last 3 that I mentioned, which were 5.8, 2.2, and 3.3. No, excuse me, not 3.3, 2.3. Excuse me. Yeah, too many numbers. I even have a spreadsheet of that too, but it's more complicated to be shown on stream or anything like it.
Yeah, and looking at nexusspaceflight.com, there's certain numbers, like you mentioned, it goes 55, 56, 57, and then, man, SpaceX must be hungry, because then there's no 58.
Oh, good lord.
I see people in chat saying that they miss the puns, they want more puns.
I bet
There's
you
support for puns. I had to throw at least one in.
I bet you 5 green monies here that there's probably going to be a 658, and we're going to know within a few days from now. Because I every single day I check up the note times for delays and things like that. Like, for example, today we found out 82 is delaying a few days from Vandenberg. So yeah, maybe in a few days we'll see 658.
Well, when that does happen, I'm very hungry for that mission to go off.
You're going to be on
So
commentary for that one. I'm just going to say that.
I better be.
However many pun tokens you've earned at this point, that is going to cost you.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works. Oh boy, there you go. You happy people? The puns have returned. All right. I guess we'll get kind of back on track here.
Puns will continue until this thing launches.
At this rate, yeah, I held off on the puns, I guess, until we knew that we actually were targeting a T0 and refueling, which fueling is underway. For those just joining in, yes, we are well past when we expected it to launch originally at 9:49 p.m. The current T0 is 10:37 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can definitely see the frost forming there at the base of the rocket very clearly as Stage 1 gets loaded with both of its propellants. So for those just joining then, Alex, do you mind just giving us a quick update / recap of where we're at?
Yeah, so we're going to have another 23 Starlink satellites launch into low Earth orbit. This is the Group 6, so Starlink Group 6-55 mission. It is not going to be the 55th launch of Group 6. It's the 54th, just because of what we talked about before with 650. It is essentially going to be doing the usual southeast launch trajectory out of the Cape. So those people on the south, look north. If you're in the Bahamas, look also north, maybe northeast, depending on where you are in the Bahamas. We saw a few weeks ago, if I remember correctly, Lon was out there at the Bahamas. He was able to see the rocket launch and even the re-entry burn, so definitely look out for that. If you don't see it now, maybe wait until a few days from now. There's another Starlink launch and then another one within 24 hours of that. So you're going to have 2 opportunities in just a few days. Definitely lots of opportunities in the near future. As I was mentioning before, it's going to be a drone ship landing. It's going to be in a Shortfall Of Gravitas, 599 kilometers downrange, which is weird because, you know, they're sort of trying to make these landing sites be closer to the landing zone, probably to reduce the time that it makes, you know, that it takes for the drone ship to go all the way out there and everything. But anyways, so we are right now on the propellant load sequence for Falcon 9. We had launch out sequence starting about 10 minutes ago at T-minus 35 minutes. That initiates the automated countdown sequence where, you know, the ground systems load RP1 on both stages and liquid oxygen on the first stage. That's why we see it right now, very cold. It's getting frosty as it gets that cold liquid oxygen. It's subcooled to to densify it and be able to pack more of it inside of the tanks of Falcon 9. We're going to proceed in just 4 minutes from now. We're going to have the T-minus 20-minute vent preparing those lines for the liquid oxygen load on the second stage. RP1 load will be completed on the second stage. No more kerosene being loaded there. Then at T-minus 7 minutes, we're going to go all the way to engine chill. It's going to be very similar to that as well, loading, flowing a little bit of liquid oxygen through the Merlin engines. Of course, in between that, as you can see there on the timeline, we're going to have Stage 2 lux load beginning at T-minus 16 minutes or so. And so we are right now into that propellant load sequence. We're starting to get frost on the vehicle. We're going to see more venting really soon. Things are going to get a lot more active in just a few minutes from now. Tolkien, well muted. Sawyer.
Yeah, it takes me a second. There we go.
There you go. You're back.
Do you want to listen to my terrible mouth sounds while I'm taking a drink of water? You're welcome. Anyway, yeah, it's going to get very exciting very soon if it isn't exciting already. Now, I do want to shout out Dr. Holly in chat who says, Sawyer, I got you when it comes to the pun tokens. This is Dr. Holly during one of the launches where I finally got to meet her, gave me physical pun tokens, like an actual box full of tokens that had the word pun written on it. So if I have to dip into that, I will.
Is that what the chopsticks will say to Booster 12 on Flight 5 of Starship? I got you.
Wow.
Oh.
Anyways.
That was very deep, Alice. I like
can
that.
also do puns, okay? they are worse, even worse than Sawyer's puns, but I can do them.
But can confirm Dr. Holly did in fact give Sawyer a box full of tokens that literally said pun on them. Dr. Holly, we cannot endorse this kind of behavior. Come on.
What do you mean? We can absolutely endorse this kind of behavior. Oh boy! And by the way, we've got we should do Valentine's Day cards in the shop for next year for Starship once they start doing the catches, like that one. I got you, or you're a catch. Oh,
Oh
just
boy.
Oh,
I don't know which is worse, laughter or silence in that case.
am I
Anyway.
being an expendable booster because you're pulling my leg?
Oh
Oh,
my God, Alex.
That's a good one though. You gotta admit it.
I'm telling you, it's rubbing off. More people at NSF are making puns on air, and I'm very proud of it. Oh, and Kara Twilight saying that with the physical, literal pun tokens, I should now coin a phrase.
Oh my goodness gracious me, oh my.
Oh, don't worry, Max. I'll be there for Starliner where you can't mute me.
Yay!
That is also true. That's 2 launches away. So, if you are around the Cape, wait a few days more because you're probably going to see humans going off on Starliner. Hopefully, cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Knock on wood and everything.
Yeah, it's a crew spaceflight, and
Yeah.
it's a Boeing Starliner capsule aboard a ULA Atlas V.
The first time humans launch on Starliner, that's going to be exciting to see another spacecraft with human capability.
Yeah, all puns aside, that is seriously going to be a really big one, and
Yeah.
it's only just now beginning to set in down here. Just the level of I'm not even sure how to describe it. It's just this mission is of a level of seriousness that it's almost impossible to actually joke about it, especially with what Starliner has gone
Yeah.
through in the past.
Exactly.
It's a little bit scary. I'm just going to be honest. At least on my end, I'm a little bit I'm worried on this one. But that I guess is the natural feeling whenever humans are climbing inside a brand new spacecraft for the first time. So nothing against Starliner itself, obviously, but crew test flights are always nerve wracking.
All right. Speaking of something you don't have to worry about, though, is what's happening on your screen right now. That is the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent, aka the best vent. So, Alex, what are we seeing venting out here?
Yeah, that is gaseous oxygen. Well, technically what you're seeing is the condensation produced by the gaseous oxygen being vented out. That gaseous oxygen is a result of flowing a little bit of that liquid oxygen through that line. There's a sort of relief valve that is where that gaseous oxygen is coming off from. That gaseous oxygen is because that liquid oxygen that is being flowed through that pipe, it is to condition that pipe to be able to load liquid oxygen in just about 3 minutes from now. And that allows them to be able to load that liquid oxygen to full power, so to speak, to full flow, essentially once everything is conditioned. So right now, obviously, as it cools down the pipe, the oxygen in itself heats up, and therefore it becomes gas. And you need somewhere to, for that gas to go. And that's what we're seeing right now. That is the gaseous oxygen coming up from the transport reactor. A similar thing is done later on with the Merlin engine. When they do the engine chill, they flow a little bit of the liquid oxygen through those liquid oxygen turbo pumps. They also have little vents on the octaweb. We don't see those, sadly, because we don't have any engine cameras or anything. Hi, SpaceX. Hey, we will love those, by the way. But you can see something similar on Raptor for Starship. When we see the engine chill begin, they have little pipes that reroute that, and we can see that on Starship. But Falcon 9, though, it's more complicated. We don't have any views of that. But yeah, similar thing here as well. Transport reactor needs to be conditioned for the liquid oxygen load. They flow a little bit of it. Gaseous oxygen comes out of vent, and that's what we're seeing here right now.
There you go. And we should be seeing that until the T-minus 16-minute mark or so. That is when we will stop seeing the vent, and in theory, that will mean that the liquid oxygen load is underway.
Yep.
Some amazingly generous support just came in. Matthew Scott McMillan gifting 50 Red Team memberships. Goodness gracious, thank you so much for the generous support there. If you did get one of those gifted memberships, make sure to go check them out and say thank you. And go check out all the awesome member perks. There's some great shots of Starbase in there. And again, this weekend, some cool preview pictures coming from Cape Canaveral.
You know, Matthew is one of those names that comes up in our chat very often, and also on Twitter as well, or X, or Twix. So special shout out for Matthew for hanging with us and coming out to watch every time.
Yes, a name we see very often and we love to see. So thank you very much for all your support and interacting with us on Twitter even. I know we've tweeted at each other a couple times. So yes, thank you. George, thank you for the support with a good question here saying, which company do you think will be the next to reuse boosters? My bet, personally, is going to be Rocket Lab. The fact that they've technically recovered a booster, they've reused an engine. That would be my guess, but Max, what do you think? And then I'll ask Alex.
That is, it seems like a tougher question than it actually is, because the most logical and like obvious answer, it would seem, would be Rocket Lab with a reflown Electron. But I want to say maybe Relativity with Terranar at some point, hopefully soon, because anyone else really isn't necessarily that close in terms of a reusable first stage. So yeah, I would also say Rocket Lab.
Alex?
I think Rocket Lab, and I'm gonna say something very controversial, Blue Origin with New Glenn.
Oh boy.
And I think it's actually going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think, because I really haven't seen anything from Rocket Lab about the Electron reuse. Like, they flew a booster with a reused engine, and then it's like complete radio silence. Yes, they have talked about, oh, we have a booster now back on the production flow and everything. It's like, okay, what about flying it, right? It's like, I don't know. It kind of feels like they have a lot more runway to go, right? It's like, I don't know, they would be a lot more chatty about that if they were a lot closer. Might be just feelings. And then Blue Origin, because I don't know, I don't see... Well, it might be one of the Chinese launchers, but it will also be very close. I think the next sort of reusable booster kind of thing will either be New Glenn or the Tianlong 3 rocket from Space Pioneer in China, because it's supposed to debut in reusable configuration next year. It will fly first in expendable configuration later this year, and then next year as reusable. But New Glenn is supposed to land on the drone ship, whatever name they have for the barge or whatever they're landing the booster. I think they're making only 4 or 5 boosters, and then they're reusing them. So after flight 4 or 5 in New Glenn, I guess they're already going to be reusing boosters, if not earlier than that. So they're going to go with reuse very early on. It's not going to be like Falcon 9 or Starship, where at the beginning, or even the Tianlong 3 rocket that I was just mentioning here, where at first it's expendable, then we try to land it, we do suborbital hops and whatnot, and then we go into reuse, we see how it goes. Like, it seems like they're going straight into it. So that's why I was mentioning maybe the 3rd position Blue Origin. We'll see. They're trying to get it done. Let's hope for the best.
If Blue can land a New Glenn booster on the first try for Escapade, that's going to be insane.
Yeah.
Yes, that will be awesome to see. Christiana, thank you for becoming a Pad Rep member, as well as Catherine becoming a Pad Rep member, and Brett becoming a Pad Rep member as well. Angry American saying, can we do a token drive to get Jack in a kilt? I'm all for it.
Anything to get Jack in a kilt.
I'm waiting to see the ire of Jack in chat. Shadow Gunner saying, "Long live the punster." You go, Sawyer. Also, Alex, it's great that you're joining in on the puns. One of us. One of us.
Ah, okay.
Katie saying Rocket Lab better than all others, I guess. Which, I mean, I agree. I think that Rocket Lab will be next on the list in terms of landing. And Matthew Scott McMillan with a $250 super chat saying, "Thank you for the excellent coverage. Great team. If your job is to leave me speechless, you're getting there. It stops the puns because wow, thank you so much for the generous support that you always give and have continued tonight. It's unbelievable. So thank you so much for that support. That's what allows us to bring you these fantastic live launches, the Cape flyovers, the multiple camera coverage and hours-long coverage that we plan to bring you for that Starliner mission coming up. It's just, and all the marathon streams for all the road closures happening down at Starbase. Thank you. I think that's all I can say is just thank you. I'm at a loss for other words. Let's see. Angry American also coming in with the kind words. You guys are too nice tonight. Thank you. Saying NSF is hands down the best place for all space-related news and coverage. Not even mainstream can come close to NSF. Go NSF. Keep up the amazing coverage. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, tonight. It's... wow. Someone say words.
Words.
Touche, sir. Touche. Along those lines, I did want to point out the message from Jason Campbell earlier saying, if there ever is a Starlink 7-89, Sawyer is not allowed to be on that call. We would not be able to handle the punishment.
Well, thankfully, at the moment, that looks to be a long ways out. So I think we're safe from that threat at the moment.
Couple of months. Just give them a couple of months.
You know what? Honestly, you might be right. Who knows?
Well, it's a Starlink Group 7, so that might be from the West Coast. And we may not have access to cover that.
So,
yeah.
Come on. It's... I guess they launched the 7s out of the West Coast because 6 is afraid of 7. Because 7, 8, 9. And I think that's the exact reason why I would not be allowed on that one.
I can see Sawyer, camera in hand, being like, we're not going to stream. I'm just going to go right there and moving across the country just to get us a live stream for that mission.
I would fly to Vandenberg if there is that funny of a number just to make the joke. I would do it.
Evan, write him down.
We are now under the T-minus 10-minute mark until the scheduled liftoff here. Max, I know we're getting close to setting you free time. So we've got a bunch of cameras you and D are working tonight. So I will let you guys get started on that. And we will talk to you after liftoff so you don't have to deal with any more of my puns.
That's a dang good deal, Sawyer. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And we will see you on the other side.
All right. Here's a good question from Michael. Alex, do the Falcon 9 or Starship tanks have any insulation?
Not that I know of. At least not on the actual tank itself. For example, on Falcon 9, the common dome does have a bit of insulation because you have the kerosene at the bottom and then you have the liquid oxygen. So you kind of need some insulation there so that the kerosene doesn't just completely freeze. So there's a little bit of insulation there. The transfer tube as well on Falcon 9 at the very least is also insulated because you have liquid oxygen flowing through the kerosene tank. So obviously you will essentially freeze the kerosene if that were to not be insulated or some kind of low heat conductor kind of thing being there. For Starship, it's a bit easier. The tanks themselves, they are not insulated at all. And then both of the propellants, they are cryogenic in some shape or form. They are cold essentially, so you will not really be able to need any sort of insulation between the tanks or anything. Even the transfer tube, it just goes straight through. In that case, it is the methane on Starship, on both the booster and the ship. So you have the transfer tube for the methane going through the oxygen tank. It's still cold, very cold, whether it's methane or the oxygen. Technically, the methane it's a little bit hotter than the oxygen, but just a couple of dozen degrees more. It's not really that big of a difference.
Right. Especially while we're talking about cold propellants and things like that. We are now at the T-minus 7-minute mark, at which point they will start conditioning the 9 Merlin 1D engines for liftoff, which, why do they need to condition them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially, you have multiple reasons here. First of all, when you flow that liquid oxygen, that very cold liquid oxygen through, and it's very cold and it makes the whole of the metal brittle and things like that, that is not good. So what you do is you, instead of doing a very fast transition from essentially ambient temperature to the cold temperatures of the liquid oxygen, you just condition it. You try to bring it down to that temperature slowly instead of rapidly. But also, on the other hand, you have the oxygen flowing through the turbo pump, and if you go and do it very, very fast and you flow it through at very high flows, it instantly flashes into a gas, and you essentially cannot get rid of that so fast as to, because you usually have these drain pipes and everything. You cannot really get rid of that fast, and what you can have is an explosion essentially on your engine, just because there's been that flash boil off. It has heated up so much that liquid oxygen that it becomes gas and just destroys your engine. That is not good. So what you do is you just flow just a little bit of that. They open the pre-valves on those engines just a little bit without the pumps running, so that they can get conditioned and cold when that flow actually starts at the at the maximum flow that they have to run for the engine to work.
Yeah, that's kind of important not to have your engines blow up. Just saying.
Yeah.
We are now about 5 minutes away from the scheduled T0 here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where a Falcon 9 is getting ready to launch another 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites as part of the Starlink 6-55 mission. This mission will continue to follow the traditional southeasterly trajectory that we're used to for Starlink missions out of Cape Canaveral, with the landing downrange about 600 or so kilometers downrange on a Shortfall of Gravitas. The fairings are also set to be recovered, and the fairing recovery ship Doug is also downrange, ready for its job. So now at 4.5 minutes, we are coming up here on the strongback retract, which it's a little bit hard to see from this particular angle, but if you look through the tower there, you can kind of see the strongback itself, which that will retract only 1.8 degrees. Alex, why does it just retract so little, I guess?
Yeah, that is a great question. So obviously they need to retract the strongback, but it has these cradle arms at the top so that it can lift the rocket and everything. So instead of retracting it from the beginning, just like they do, for example, at Vandenberg, they already retracted to 77 degrees away, not away, but I guess away from horizontal. In this case, it is 1.8 from vertical, so that the lines, so that essentially the strongback remains closely attached but open and able to just swim back at liftoff. And the reason to keep it close is because that way the lines that go to the rocket, those umbilical lines, they remain short. And when you pull away the strongback, you're also pulling away from the rocket because it's lifting off. So the lines essentially pull off, and they don't need to be that long. When you see those launches from Vandenberg, the lines are very long because they need to go, the whole way. Those 77, I guess 13 degrees. Excuse me, boy, I cannot do math now. But those 13 degrees instead of 1.8, they have to go all the way. and that makes the lines be longer. They are more exposed to the elements. They are more exposed to the rocket exhaust. It's a lot of things. So instead, they keep it closed until it's time for liftoff, and then it pulls away. Makes more sense that way.
Right, and that is also what's been providing data connections in addition to the fueling lines, as well as helping with the conditions inside the payload fairing, basically providing air conditioning and other atmospheric needs for the payloads on board as well. Coming up now on the T-minus 2-minute mark until launch. At this point, we should be wrapping up a whole bunch of fueling operations here, Alex.
Yeah, they completed the stage 1 LOX load. They should be about to wrap up the liquid oxygen load on the second stage. We're going to see the return of that vent from the Stromback as they clear out those lines. They, and I just heard the call out that they are indeed wrapping up, and then you can see that vent that I was mentioning before, that is to clear out those lines. They're short, but they still have some remaining residual oxygen inside of them, so that in case, for whatever reason, they see any damage from the rocket, you don't want that line to explode or anything like it. That was a very usual thing in the early days of Falcon 9, where these lines will explode from the exhaust. That is not good for turnaround times, right? And there's a launch out of here in about 3.5 days, 4 days, more or less. So we really want this launch pad to be quickly usable again, and we're coming up on that T-minus 1 minute mark. The ground computers should have handed off the control of the countdown to the onboard computers. Tanks are pressurizing for flight, all of those sorts of things that they do at the end of the countdown. Yep. And
so we're waiting for
very
Falcon
shortly
9 to enter startup confirmation, and then hopefully the go for launch. We should be getting those momentarily.
They are just go for launch.
All right, there we go. We are now coming up on T-minus 30 seconds here. They are go for launch. Everything appears to be going as planned at this point for the launch of more Starlink internet satellites. 20 seconds. And once again, once the launch begins, we will let you enjoy the liftoff sounds. It will take a little bit for it to reach our microphones at the press site. So don't worry, we will be quiet following liftoff here, which should be about 5 seconds away. That appears to be engine. Yep, the Rainbirds. There's ignition. And liftoff of Starlink 6-55, bringing up more Starlink V2 mini satellites. Go, internet satellites, go. And we are now at T plus 1 minute 45 seconds. Everything going exactly as expected up until this point. The beautiful engine trail you could see there. You could even hear the VAB squeal in that beautiful launch sound that we had there. Everything going exactly as planned up to this point, which means we should be about 25 seconds away from a few events happening in rapid succession, which would be MECO, main engine cutoff, followed by first and second stage separation, followed by the ignition of the second stage known as SES-1. Oh, beautiful blue color, the wide, love that. As we now reach
That's
Miko.
shutdown.
Keep in mind, our cameras are a little bit faster than SpaceX's. There's separation, and there is the second stage, SES-1 ignition. Second stage now continuing to propel those satellites into orbit. You can see some of the puffs there of the cold gas jet thrusters from that first stage as well, as it works its way towards a shortfall of gravitas. Absolutely beautiful so far. You can see now even the extension there of the grid fins on the left side of your screen. Beautiful launch up to this point, Alex.
Yeah. There we go. That's the fairing separation.
And there they go. Those, as mentioned, will also be recovered downrange, and those will be picked up by the SpaceX ship Doug to be flown again. Our cameras on the ground continuing still to track that second stage there. That is stage 2 with the normal size nozzle, not a stubby nozzle as we saw earlier today from California.
Yeah, and that fair recovery vessel actually it's recovering the second mission of this trip, so to speak, because it already supported the Starlink 654 mission, and it's stuck around the Bahamas. It went to Nassau, and it's been there waiting for this mission. It's also supporting this one, so once it comes back, and you'll be able to see that on Space Coast Live, it'll come back, hopefully, with 2 pairs of fairing halves.
That is what we want to see, at least. Again, amazingly, the ground cameras continuing to track stage 2, as stage 1 reaches about the highest point of its orbit right now. You can kind of see there the altitude stalling at 117 kilometers up, which is expected. It will then begin dropping down as it heads towards, as you mentioned, near the Bahamas, which is where a shortfall of gravitas is located for this particular mission. Right now, everything looking good. The next event will be happening in about a minute and a half from now or so. That will be the first stage entry burn, which is an approximately 20-second long burn that basically uses the engines and the fire created from them to act as a heat shield as the spacecraft slows itself down a little bit through the atmosphere on its way towards that landing on the drone ship, hopefully about 2 minutes after that. I'll even save it for you, Alex, of our favorite line when describing what happens during that burn.
Fighting fire with fire.
Yes. Great view also on the left there, looking up from inside the interstage, too. A unique view that we don't normally get to see on the way down. Especially because if you look on the downward-facing camera, there isn't that much to see except the occasional cold gas jet thrusters.
Yeah, are we also on a new moon or something like that? So there's not a lot of moonlight to illuminate things.
That too, and again, ground teams for us here at NSF continuing to track stage 2 all the way now at T plus 6 minutes and 10 seconds into flight.
You'll be coming up on that entry burn.
So keep an eye on the right side of your screen there, the leftmost box. If that makes sense. There we go. There is that second stage ignition, fighting fire with fire.
I think
there
we
it is
saw
from the
for
ground.
just a second.
Yes, that was from our Cape cameras, continuing to capture that. Unbelievable footage from tonight. Great job, everyone out there.
A bit complicated sometimes because it's very far away. People don't get to grasp how far away it is. It's like hundreds of kilometers away or miles. See, that kind of works on both because it's hundreds.
Right, and that low down to the horizon as well from where we're located at the Cape.
Just a few clouds in the horizon that already can mess with the view. Speaking of the view, you can see there of messing with the view. The re-entry plasma is messing with that view from the booster, but you could see it was hot. It was coming in hot.
Exactly. That's also, by the way, with that entry burn like that, that's why the rockets get so sooty on the first stage, as that fire, again, it's carbon-based with the RP1 fuel, so you're going to get soot. We should be about 30 seconds away now, hopefully, from a successful landing on a Shortfall of Gravitas.
Watch out for the telemetry, because usually what you see is first the speed goes down dramatically. It's still going down, but this is all aerodynamically. Around 2.8 or so, the speed goes down dramatically. That's because the engine has ignited, and then you see it on the video. So it's already under the speed of sound, approaching the drone ship. You kind of see there that light.
Yeah,
Look at
towards
the
the middle
speed.
left, the little pixel there.
There you go. And now you can see on the video.
There we go. And now it should become a lot clearer of the deck of the drone ship. Those grid fins doing their job to steer in the thicker part of the atmosphere. There is the drone ship. The X kind of burnt off at this point. Landing like deploy. And touchdown. Another successful booster landing. 19 flights. Let's add a -20 to the end. Unbelievable. Another successful landing there, and we should be getting confirmation shortly of a nominal orbital insertion with SECO 1.
Looking at the numbers, I can already tell you it's okay. Because it's the same for all the missions. So, and
There
I
you
just
go.
heard the call out. So, indeed, it is nominal parking orbit.
That's exactly what we want to hear. Let's see if we can also hear from our team down at the Cape, if they're back on comms. Max, how was this one?
Beautiful as always, man. That was because of what the wind is doing tonight, and that it's only a small breeze coming from the direction of where the pad is toward us now. But even that little bit of wind blowing that sound our way does so much for the experience here and anyone in line with it. That was incredibly punchy, and man, that was just gorgeous as always. And of course, because we have crystal clear skies tonight, with the exception of like 1 or 2 clouds hanging around, we were able to follow stage 2 all the way up until the trees right in front of us, and we also had a front row seat for the entry burn as well. So never gets old.
Oh, I can imagine that. And again, the sound, as you mentioned, I believe we could hear the VAV squeal as well, right?
Absolutely. And D and I try to stay focused on keeping the plume and the body in the frames of our monitor. So we typically are kind of zoned out from everything else around us, but the VAB squeal always sneaks through and always tickles our eardrums as well. So yes, it is always there.
Yeah, for those unaware, that has to do with a very fun quirk with Falcon 9 in particular, and the Merlin engines. They resonate at a frequency that when the sound bounces off the panels on the vehicle assembly building, you get what sounds like a squeal or a screeching type sound. It is most prominent from pad 40, which has more of a direct line of sight to the side panels of the VAB, as well as boosters that come in for a landing for the same reason. Absolutely beautiful. Now, we are working on getting those replays pulled, so stay tuned for that. We're not done yet tonight. But in the meantime, I do want to thank the people that gave their support prior to and during the launch. Jeffrey, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. And I love that all of these, you're going to love all of these, Max. Echo Deal saying, help, I'm trapped in a pun token factory. I'll come save you, I promise. Steve saying, I relish the punmeister. Life is too short to take things very seriously, so I truly appreciate the puns and jokes, which I'm glad, and thank you as well for the support. And Ethereal Swordsman saying, more puns have been on locks. Get it? Like liquid oxygen. Locks.
Oh dear. That's all I gotta say to that is, oh dear.
Ah,
Oh. Well, amazing that we had the view for that long of the second stage, which Marco with a good question saying, why aren't the stiffener rings used anymore on that second stage Merlin vacuum? Do we know that, Alex?
can you repeat that again?
Well, Question
Oh,
is,
the
why aren't
stiffener
the
ring.
stiffener rings used anymore?
Yeah, well, it might not be necessary, or just that the increased risk to not having it is just not really that worth. We have mainly seen those on Starlink missions, but also on a couple of customer missions as well. Rather, we have not seen it. Rather than we have seen it. We have seen the lack of the stiffener ring, but yeah, the majority of the customer missions seem to still have the stiffener ring. We'll see.
I think they were actually unable to use the stiffener ring at one point due to various circumstances surrounding that mission. And I guess from what they saw
Are you
in
going to
that
talk
mission,
about?
what?
Are you going to talk about Stubby nozzle?
I was not actually. I was just going to keep
Oh.
going on about the stiffener ring, but no. So they flew without the stiffener ring once due to specific circumstances around that mission that required that they couldn't have them, and SpaceX found that really that they don't need it anymore, essentially. So it saves a little bit of weight and a little bit of more money too.
All about saving that money.
Yeah, because I was gonna say this, the stiffener ring is definitely not there for Stubby nozzle, but Stubby nozzle is also like stubby, so you don't really need the stiffener ring because it doesn't have, like, the extension doesn't go all the way out. So yeah.
It's amazing how small it actually is compared to the full size MVAC nozzle. Like, it is
Yeah.
tiny.
It's surprising how tiny it is. Yes. Let's see here. Ken Schaefer, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. If you did get one of those gifted memberships, definitely make sure to give them a thank you. And all of the support tonight has been absolutely unbelievable. So the least we can do is get some replays for you shortly. But thank you so much to everyone for their absolutely crazy generous support tonight. Here's a question with the numbering. So Alex, this is probably for you. Gareth Cole saying, as B1060-19 never, as it landed, it never became -20. So is it officially a 20-flight booster?
No, because it has performed 19 flights.
But technically, after that, it gets the -20 at the end, because its first flight would be a -1, even though it has landed 0 times.
But it is not a 20-flight booster because it has not completed a 20 flight, a 20th flight. It becomes 20th, like the -20, because it'll fly a 20th flight. Well, that is at least what we hope so. From this booster, obviously B1060, for example, it was not at any point -21 because it was never recovered. So B1060 was always, at the end, it was B1060-20. After its 19th flight, it landed. B1060-20 flies Galileo. It is expanded. It still is B1060-20 because it's not recovered. If it had been recovered, then it's -21. That's sort of the whole deal with the numbering. It's very confusing. It's a SpaceX thing, so of course it is confusing. Just don't ask.
Yeah, no, I did see a lot of debating after I called the landing with the -20 on the end of, but it's the 19th flight. No, it's the 20th flight. Now, which flight is it?
Yeah, that is precisely. So ahead of the launch, if you're referring to the nomenclature before the launch, then of course, because the next mission for this booster will say it is B1067-20, right? And therefore, that mission ahead of it, it'll be the 20th flight of that booster. But once it lands, if it actually lands, which we hope so, on that 20th flight, then it'll become B1067-21. And
Right.
that'll be after the landing, but not before.
Right, a 20th flight proven booster that has the -21. As crazy as that it sounds. But yeah, because remember, through all of this, the first mission that any new booster flies will have a -1, because it's the first flight, even though it has 0 landings. So they're all slightly off by 1 in terms of landing numbers. Oh,
At least
hopefully that
until
makes
they
sense.
actually land, I guess. Well, once they land, they get a +1. Okay, whatever.
So, yeah. Hopefully you understand what we're trying to say here.
It's SpaceX nomenclature. Again, it just makes sense to them for their stuff, for
Yeah,
usability and all that, and all that thing. I really don't want to know about fairing serial numbers and launches. And I would like to know, like secretly, I would like to know, but also it's probably gonna be chaos if they actually name all of that.
yeah, you're not kidding. Heck, we didn't even have Starlink 6-50. How are we
Yeah.
going to try and figure out the dash numbers on this?
I guess for the fairings, I say that because there's a passive half and then an active half. One of them has the fairing separation mechanism, and then the other one is just passive. One has the docking, not the docking, the QD for the fairing, so that it gets, the satellites get conditioned and everything. So obviously they have different properties, they have different configurations. They cannot swap them just because. And so they have different lines of refurbishment, probably. So it's probably different nomenclatures. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And as you mentioned for this particular mission, Doug, with kind of the norm now of bringing back 2 missions worth of fairings, hopefully meaning that it comes back with 4 fairings if all goes well.
Yeah.
Which, in terms of
Spoil-
the fairing recovery, by the way, people don't realize that fairing halves are actually controllable on the way down, right?
Yeah, they have little thrusters and everything, and then they get the parachutes once they go through the re-entry and everything. Spoiler alert for an upcoming certain flyover of a certain spaceport. Sometimes the fairing halves do not survive the landing, and yeah, they get a little bit bent out of shape.
Oh, I know exactly what image you're talking about. That will for
Yeah.
sure
Spoiler
be making it
alert.
into the flyover.
But hey, I'm already teasing it. It's gonna happen. Is it gonna happen before the next launch out from this launch pad? Because I'm
No.
seeing the T going up. So
The
yeah, it will
T's already
probably
up.
it will probably not gonna happen before the next launch out of Slick 40, which should be 6:56 May 6 on May
6:56
6th.
on the 6th.
Exactly at 11:34 a.m. That's the morning of a Starliner, so we'll see. But yeah,
Busy day for Cape Canaveral Space Force Station that day, as you mentioned, with 6-56 from Slick 40, and then Starliner's crew flight test from Slick 41.
and then the day after, another Starlink from LC39A, 6:57
Sunday
on the 7th.
through Tuesdays is going to be a very busy time. But you know what? Those are the days that we live for out here. Those are the best.
Oh yeah,
That is true. For those big specialty missions, especially when you get a couple in a day, oh, there's nothing like it. And again, we will be bringing all of those to you live, so make sure you tune in Monday as well. Have all of your notifications turned on so you know when we go live for them, because it's going to be quite a few.
just because I'm gonna be continuing on that. And if you cannot tune in live, apart from the replays, because you can still watch them, we also cover them on This Week in Spaceflight tomorrow, releasing another Friday, another Twiz, as usual. Because I still need to finish things about Twiz. It's a whole complicated thing, but yeah.
That is true. Yes, you do have.
Just
do you have
pimping
Twiz?
things. Yeah, Twiz.
Twist will come out tomorrow, followed shortly thereafter by NSF Live.
And
Yeah.
there on Twiz, we cover all of the launches worldwide. So we also
Right.
have Chinese launches, Russian launches, whatever. We also have Electron here and there whenever they launch. It's going to be a lot of launches that we're going to be covering on Twiz this year.
And it's the end of the month, so that includes the great launch count.
That's
Yes. I love those stats, just saying. So
81 launches.
Shout out to Ryan Caton for making it all viewable on screen.
Yeah. Just because of that, I also keep a spreadsheet of worldwide launches. You probably have seen some of that work in the background.
Shocked, I tell you, shocked. You have a spreadsheet?
Yeah, I have another spreadsheet, of course. Yes, it's funny because this week I already began another spreadsheet. Because of course, every single week there's a new one.
What's the new spreadsheet?
Oh, it's about McGregor testing. In fact, I'm gonna check out McGregor live. When was the last test? Ooh,
Right
it's
as we
been
went
quiet
live.
for 2 hours. Yeah, the last one was at 7:50 p.m. Central. It's almost 10 p.m., so it's been quiet for the last 2 hours.
Almost like they're actually letting people sleep like they're supposed to.
Well, actually, the spreadsheet that I started this week was precisely about how late they are testing, or how early they are testing. Falcon second stages, MVAX, and everything. Because think about that. This is already the 45th launch of a Falcon 9 this year. They need to produce 148 second stages and 148 MVAC engines if they want to launch 148 times this year. So obviously they need to increase the cadence of testing at McGregor, because they test every single second stage, every single MVAC engine. They test those out there at McGregor. So my sort of hope, trying to look through that data, was to see things like how late or how early they're testing those. Because when you have plenty of time to test those, you essentially don't care. That the other way around. Excuse me. You pay attention to when you are testing, right? And you try to not bother people, and there's a set time of the day that you test. But when you are in a hurry, you don't care if it's 3 a.m. or 10 p.m. to test a Falcon second stage or an MVAC engine. And what I'm seeing is precisely on the data that they have widened the times of the day that they are actually testing these hardware. So yeah, I'll probably publish something about that on X in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, they have starting to give in less of a deal, I guess, of what of when they are actually testing. If it's 3 a.m., they need it ready. They really need it, and they need to test it now. Or if it's 10 p.m., same.
Right. There was a point, and I believe they still have it, in a deal with the city of McGregor, that they wouldn't test beyond a certain time at night and before a certain time in the morning, or else they would incur a fine. At this point, I believe SpaceX is just paying a bunch of those fines regardless, because they need to get the cadence up.
Yeah.
But shout out to the people of McGregor and Waco and that area. They're fantastic people, first off, to begin with. Really good friends with the mayor. Actually got to meet them at the launch of CRS 12 way back in the day, before I did some speaking down in that Central Texas area. But yeah, and don't forget, McGregor Live 24/7 is also on. I see there's already Nightbot got the link there in chat. nsf.live/McGregor.
Yeah, I'm
So
seeing some usual folks that stick around on the McGregor live chat, and yeah, it's a very fun place, because you sometimes get scared by rocket testing, or sometimes you get a moo next to the camera, and so yeah.
Right. Fun
I have
fact:
it sometimes.
the moo in the intro is actually
is a real
recorded
moo.
sound from McGregor Live.
Exactly. Yeah, that is an actual moo that we captured on those microphones. So something like that, you can get it if you watch McGregor Live.
Yes. Most importantly, not the testing of the vacuum engines, the Merlin vacuums, the Raptors, full side core boosters recently for Falcon Heavy. No, it's all about the moo. According to NASA spaceflight official, the cow is called Martin. Today I learned. Oh boy. Also, Jim Les asking you, do you have a spreadsheet to keep track of your spreadsheets?
I've started considering that, not to track my spreadsheets, but to track the work that I need to do for my spreadsheets. because I also have, I work at NSF and we have videos that need to get done. I have, but I also at the same time, I also need to gather data that I need to put on spreadsheets and things like that. So obviously it's a bit of, I don't know, kind of the dog trying to chase its own tail kind of thing, where, yeah, I need to work on NSF stuff, but that NSF work also implies and includes me updating my spreadsheets. And if I don't do that, I also don't do my NSF work. Or at least I do it very poorly, so I really need to work on both.
More spreadsheets, more better, as Hugh
Yeah, and
just said.
and sometimes when I have a lot of work, it's like, yeah, I really need to organize myself. I should make a spreadsheet. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go that deep. The spreadsheet of spreadsheets.
Max, what would you say is the official sound then of KSC and Space Coast Live?
Honestly, with the cadence that SpaceX is at now, it's going to be the sound of 9 Merlins taken off the pad, or it is the sound of that too. I mean, that could very well be one as well, or the sound of a very angry and agitated alligator following the noise after a rocket launch. Because there's probably, after every single launch out here at night, we can hear upwards of like 3 to 5 alligators all up in the ditch next to us, and also out in the lagoon just growling away because they're so angry about the noise.
Yeah, they are surprisingly noisy. And speaking of surprisingly noisy, how about we take a look and listen to some replays of tonight's Starlink 6-55 launch? Take it away, Patrick. Love the pumped up Max there.
That is such a good angle. Holy cow.
The rumble of the engines as well.
Yeah, listen to that. You had the squeal on that one too.
Yeah.
By the way, Max, if you take a screen grab of that, I think you have a new profile picture.
I was gonna say something can easily be done with that, whether it be a thumbnail for a video or something. Like, that was awesome. That is such a good silhouette.
Here's another view from... Instead of the silhouette, this is what the silhouette was taking video of. This is in fact Max's track, and it looks beautiful. This shot, I should point out. I mean, look at the light just reflecting off the camera lens, get those colors.
What's nice about this one was, I guess, the wind was blowing the condensation plume. So once Falcon 9 and other rockets get to a certain altitude, they pass through a certain layer of the atmosphere that the air around it immediately condenses due to the super hot temperature of the engines. And so what's unique about that tonight was the wind was blowing such that the cloud obstructed the rocket's view for us just for a couple of seconds. So
yeah, it made for a great shot there too. So amazing work there, Max Evans out in the field. Thank you so much for all of your visuals tonight, as well as the commentary.
Hey, it is a pleasure as always, everybody. And I'm actually working on a streak shot at the moment. It should be up and posted in about 10 minutes time. But it is a serious pleasure, as always, coming out to the Kennedy Space Center or the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station to document history as it is happening for everyone else to enjoy. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in tonight, and we will see you, hopefully, on Monday morning.
Yes, as we take a slow motion look back at the launch there. Again, thank you very much, Max. Thank you to Dee as well, who was out there in the field also providing amazing views similar to these. Great with the slow-mo. Alex, thank you so much as well for all of your commentary and help tonight.
It's been a pleasure, and see you for Starlink 656 on the 6th.
Yes, and as well the CFT, the crew flight test.
And
as well.
Starliner, and more Starlink later down the line. We have a complete week next week.
Also, shout out to Gage, who I believe was operating some of the cameras there as well, as we get that gorgeous nebula shot. Shout out to Patrick running these replays and who helped run the stream tonight and broke the curse of the delays by not showing the timeline at one point. Thank you for that. I have been your host, Sawyer Rosenstein. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And on that note, we will see you for the next ones. Later, nerds.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Probably not. Roger, planet. Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FTE off. Say again, FTE off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?